circus artist, that's what I have to follow. I have to follow somebody that has performed at Cirque du Soleil. Okay, I was a little bit nervous before, now I'm incredibly nervous. This is nowhere near any sort of circus act, but I'll do my best to try and keep it a little bit entertaining anyways. My name's Greg Twinney, I'm the CEO of General Fusion. I'm here to talk to you about what I believe to be the most disruptive and transformative technology that we'll ever know. Fusion. I got into fusion a handful of years ago because of exactly what I just described. The ability to transform the energies of the world using fusion is incredibly attractive to me. I spent my entire career building disruptive companies and have done it in all sorts of different areas. When I thought about what to do next 4 or 5 years ago, I decided I wanted to do something that was going to really change the world, not just from an impact-wise, but also financially. But when I thought about what to do, I thought about a disruptive company. What does a disruptive company look like? Of course, it's technology. A lot of people think it's technology first. You need a really good technology that is going to be surrounded by a business model to become a company. And I think that as I've seen a ton of technologies around the last couple of days, last week in New York, I'm really encouraged by the technologies coming to market, but I really do encourage my business colleagues to keep an eye on what it is that's going to take that technology from a lab or a demonstration through to ultimately disrupting an industry. And that means it needs to be something that's competitive and can compete with what's there now and what's coming. And so when I think about fusion as a disruptive technology, it's not just the technology, it is the business model wrapped around it so that it can be deployed at scale globally. I don't need to talk to this audience about the challenge that we've got. I see it as 3 big things. 1, we need to decarbonize the current sources of energy. 2, we need to satiate this massive demand we're seeing from AI and data centers, the electrification of the grid. We need to decarbonize that. And lastly, after we've solved those 2 big challenges, we need to start taking some of that CO2 out of the atmosphere. A huge challenge. Existing technologies that I see as I spend time here and make my way around the world meeting with investors and other entrepreneurs trying to solve these challenges, I'm really encouraged by what I see. Wind, solar, the advancements there, the carbon capture, biofuels, even geothermal, incredible technologies that are competitive and are absolutely moving at an incredible pace, and we really need those. We need those solutions in order to tackle this challenge. But I believe more is needed. We need clean baseload energy over the long term. We need to replace oil, coal, natural gas. That needs to happen. We need an energy disruptor. Enter fusion, nature's ultimate energy source. Fusion is the process that we see every day. When we look up at the stars, when we see the sun shining, that's fusion happening. It's been happening for billions of years. It's probably going to continue to happen for billions of years more. The sun and the stars have this advantage of being able to take light elements through huge amounts of gravity and heat and fuse them together and release enormous amounts of energy. Of course, the holy grail for us is being able to recreate those conditions on demand here on Earth. How does it work? Well, you need to recreate the conditions of the sun and the star inside of a machine to start with. Pretty challenging. Most people that are trying to work on fusion these days are trying to fuse 2 light elements, one called deuterium and another one called tritium. Under these extreme temperatures, densities, and for the right amount of time, you can get these 2 atoms to fuse together. And when they fuse together, you get 2 things. You get a huge amount of energy in the form of a high-energy neutron, and you get helium as a byproduct. So that's the scientific process that happens inside of any machine, or most machines, I would say, that are trying to create fusion conditions here on Earth. Fusion is so incredibly dense that if you were to imagine, from a density perspective, the amount of fuel it takes to replace 50,000 barrels of oil It's actually 1 liter of heavy water. So the amount of energy stored in 1 liter of heavy water, derived from seawater, is the equivalent of 50,000 barrels of oil. That's how dense fusion is. It's quite incredible. Now, if we can harness that, what does it mean? What does it mean for all of us? What does it mean for the future of energy? It means we have access to clean energy. Fusion being no carbon emissions and a very, very minimal environmental impact. Safe. No chain reaction in fusion. It's the exact opposite of fission. No long-lived radioactive waste, and no chance of a meltdown. Scalable. The footprint for a fusion plant is quite small. Think of a footprint for an SMR, but without the regulatory framework wrapped around it and all the distancing that's required in traditional nuclear fission. Lastly, abundance. The fuel source is seawater. So seawater available around the world. And in fact, if you were to take all the seawater in the world and power that and create fusion with it, you could actually power the grid for billions of years. So abundance and available virtually everywhere. Of course, is it real? There's a lot of jokes out there around fusion. 30 years away, always will be 30 years away. Fusion is the future and always will be in the future. I've heard it all from investors, from other people. It's ubiquitously shared in people who doubt what fusion can bring to the world and don't understand the progress that's been made over the last couple of decades. The figures are mirrored around temperatures, densities of plasmas, and the milestones achieved in the various national labs around the world have set the stage for a real outbreak on commercialization. There's actually a race going on right now. It's a global race. Governments around the world are investing heavily in fusion programs. The US with a decadal vision for fusion. The UK, massive fusion program going on over there. China, multiple $billion per year being invested in fusion. South Korea, Japan has a moonshot milestone program that they are also doing. What you don't see here is Canada. Canada doesn't have a national fusion program, a national fusion strategy, or a path to doing that anytime soon. We're behind on the national level. However, there's also a bunch of companies. Fusion's become pretty fashionable in the last few years with these milestones achieved in national labs, and now companies looking at the opportunity to take this commercial. There's about 40 companies around the world going after commercializing fusion. You can see how they're dispersed here. There's one in Canada. It's our company, General Fusion, and we happen to be the leader. These companies, including us, have raised about $7 billion of capital over the last few years. It's quite a bit of capital, but not anywhere near enough. Most of the underpinning for that capital comes from national lab programs, milestone programs, and support from government. And then on top of that, you've got billionaires investing in fusion companies. People like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Sam Altman, Peter Thiel, all leaning into fusion. It's a real race, and the prize is big. So what's been achieved around the world most recently are the real breakthroughs on the science side. We have seen fusion temperatures of 100 million degrees happening all over the world on a regular basis. We're seeing densities of plasmas, we're seeing scientific achievements, and most recently in the US at the National Ignition Facility, we saw their reactor produce more energy out than it took to create the fusion conditions to begin with, which is a massive milestone on a scientific basis. Really sets a strong foundation of science for companies like ours to take it to the next stage. So, let me tell you a little bit about General Fusion. Our mission, commercialize fusion. We're not in this to create science experiment. We're not in this to do research. We're in this to go after the trillion-dollar opportunity of being the first company to commercialize fusion. And that's the path we've been on since 2002, when our founder and now chief scientist, Dr. Michel Laberge, started the company. He had his first fusion reaction in his garage in 2005. Since then, we have been on a path that's got us within reach of power on the grid by the mid-2030s. He started with a view to creating a power plant with a technology that is designed to be a power plant. It seems pretty straightforward, but as you look around the globe, most of the research, most of the work has been done in science and research labs with machines that will never become a power plant. So we started with an end in mind of a power plant driven by fusion. And over the last couple of decades, we've been working away at subscale at the various components of this technology in order to get it ready for the prime time. Quickly described, this is a machine that acts like a diesel engine. We start with deuterium and tritium, the two elements that I talked about earlier that we want to fuse together. We start with that, we heat it up to about 5 million degrees, and it turns into a plasma. That plasma is then injected into our form of a cylinder, which is actually a liquid metal cylinder. With that liquid metal cylinder, we compress the plasmas down, starting at 5 million degrees, and increase the temperatures up to 10 million degrees, 100 million degrees, and ultimately power plant fusion conditions that will be able to withstand the long-term commercialization of fusion. So making sure that we're protecting the machine against the harsh conditions of fusion, making sure that we can breed our own fuel. The interaction of the fusion reaction in the liquid metal wall in our unique approach breeds its own fuel, allowing us to extract the energy from fusion. Of course, if you can have a fusion reaction, that's hard to do and difficult, but it's useless if you can't turn it into usable power. We have this liquid metal cavity that surrounds the fusion reaction, allows us to capture that high energy neutron and put that energy to work using a typical balance of plant. And lastly, doing all of this in a design and ultimately construction that will allow us to put energy on the grid at a levelized cost of electricity that competes with coal, $50 to $65 per megawatt hour. So it's a great design, sounds fantastic. What have we done? We've built several world-class, world-leading machines in Vancouver, Canada. Just the next province over, all of this is happening. We have built large-scale test beds for plasmas at 5 million degrees. We've been testing our subscale compression systems, our work with lithium, all of these things that are now set up so that our next milestone can be achieved. And that milestone is a machine called LM26, Lawson Machine 26. Lawson is an industry term about the conditions for fusion. And this machine is set to be commissioned in January of 2025, just a handful of months away. This machine will reach 3 important goals for us. 1, 10 million degrees. We'll achieve that in the first quarter of 2025. Then we'll increase densities and energy so that we can get to 10 keV, 100 million degrees, fusion temperatures, the temperatures we need in our fusion power plant. And lastly, we'll increase the density along with that temperature to get to break-even conditions ourselves. So achieving a similar milestone that I described earlier that happened in the national lab where you put a lot of energy into creating fusion conditions and you need to obviously get out more energy than that, that's what we are aiming to achieve as well in the third milestone called 100% of Lawson. The difference for how we're doing it is that we're doing it in a way that will translate to a commercial power plant, not a research facility, not trying to reconfigure some machine that's been done for science, but we're starting with an end in mind for commercializing and achieving these milestones in that way. That will launch us exiting 2026 into the next major phase for us, which is building a commercial scale demonstration of the technology, and ultimately power on the grid in the mid-2030s. This company is located in Vancouver, Canada. We have 130 people working on this diligently now, and this is all about to happen within a decade. So fusion is closer than you think, not just timeline, but also geographically, just down the street. I'll end here with a quote from Winston Churchill. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. Fusion is a grand challenge. Solving the science-based climate change that we're going through is a grand challenge. However, I see it as a massive opportunity, an opportunity to make an incredible impact and build Canada's trillion-dollar company next. Very excited to share with you all today what's going on in our world. I know I skipped over a lot very quickly. Please reach out to us. Look up on our website. Look me up on LinkedIn. Very excited to share more. And please keep up the good work. Thank you very much.